A person is asking what management is, or managing sector is in a spiritual center, both regarding Figueira as well as regarding the lighthouse of the hill. So, before we speak about management in these centers, let us first see what a spiritual center is. A spiritual center, or a spiritual organism, is fundamented in qualities of the spiritual level. It is not fundamented only on laws from matter, because it must offer a field of development for the beings who are in evolution, evolutionary development. It goes a little bit beyond social assistance, material support, psychological support. It goes a little beyond this. The spiritual center must offer a field of development. And on the surface of the earth, the spiritual center, or the spiritual environment, is a place of inner preparation, of subjective internal preparation, both of individuals as well as of groups. These places must radiate a vibration, an elevated vibration. These places are not created for common material vibration, but rather for a more elevated vibration. So the beings, the person, the people who are part of them and are aware of where they are, and who are aware of the task that is developed there, must take care of refining and purifying their own vibrations first of all, because then, just by the fact of being there, they will be able to help others to purify their own vibrations. Although these nuclei are projected here on the physical field, and although they are also dealing with many physical and concrete things, they should be polarized and connected with the spiritual level. This connection is supposed to be kept. What we call spiritual level in the sense is that level of consciousness that remains a little beyond our intuition. So it's not enough that we are intuitive. It is necessary that our intuitive capacity is looking for contact with the spiritual level, which is right after, above. Otherwise, we become someone who is very effective, positive, helpful, but this is not enough in a spiritual center. It is necessary that this intuitive part is connected with the level above, the level beyond. This spiritual level is qualified by the third ray. The third ray, the ray of active intelligence. Active intelligence is more than intuition. Intuition needs active intelligence. This is to say, intuition needs to find this rhythm, this form, this way of connecting with the spiritual level. And this, the ray of the spiritual level, helps when it is evoked, when it is sought. It is this ray, this third ray, that connects us with the spiritual. This is what frees light in our matter, in our cells. So we are not going to manage to liberate, to free ourselves, to free our form, our formal part, from that which are the typical elements of it. if this light from the spiritual plane does not come. This is the light that frees, that liberates our human material, our cell material, from that which it has to be liberated. When this impulse descends from the spiritual level, when we invoke it and we open ourselves to it, in some people this is a factor of conflict. Therefore, we need to recognize when we are in conflict with a spiritual center, or when we are in conflict with a spiritual task, because it does not correspond to us. It's not related to us yet. This is not our place. This is not our task. We are not attuned with this. We have a different path, so we enter into conflict. This is a sort of conflict, but there is a different sort of conflict, which is the reaction of matter before this impulse that comes from the spiritual center. Because the spiritual center gradually removes our crystallizations, our prejudices. It gradually removes our densest things. So it's not the case for us to leave. So we have to distinguish between these two sorts of conflict. There is a sort of conflict that shows that this is not your place. And there is another one, which is a reaction of your more human, more material part before a certain stimulation that is producing a changing in your crystallization. And here we need to invoke the energy of will. The third way is not enough. The third ray is what is acting, but we have to invoke the first. Willpower, intelligence is not enough. Understanding is not enough. We need to invoke the will part, which is a little above, a little more above. We need to seek to have a more organized mental level and an active heart. So an organized mental plane and an ignited heart is what produces the chemistry for us to be there, not in conflict. So the organized mental level and a very living, alive heart, a very open heart. Now let us see the managing part. What is managing, or what is a managing sector in a spiritual center? Management in the common sense, in the material sense, is something very clear for many. You even have a course for this, right? You even have schools to teach management. This is a group of norms or rules to discipline the elements that produce that, the elements that bring progress. And it is a form for us to control that which is produced, that which is created. So this is management in the materialistic sense. And this material management does not only include the control of what is produced, but it also includes the control of quality. Quality is included in this management, although it is a material management. To materially manage, we need to learn not only to manage something, but we must also learn how to act. To manage only is not enough for a normal manager. They must know how to act. They must know how to do, how to produce, how to demonstrate that which they are managing, that which they are requesting. Otherwise, they are not a good manager. and they have to cause their action to be very effective, very real, and not that it is an abstract action, that it is an action only of presenting ideologies, but they must also make all of that a reality. These are known things in the definition of management, and the manager must also know how to make things to be put into practice. Otherwise, they are not a manager. They are theoretical, someone who is theoretical. So they must know how to do what it is about, and they must make this a practice. And with this, they gradually develop as a manager. Now, a good manager is totally in charge of that which they are managing. Someone is not a good manager if they are more or less in charge, or if they are in charge of one thing and are not in charge of another thing, or those who are in charge of that which they like and leave for others that which they don't like, that which they are not they are not kindred with. This is a bad manager. This is a half manager. They have to be in charge of everything totally. Otherwise, those who depend on their contacts, on their guidance, those who depend on their influence, does not manage to perceive, to effectively feel their action. When there is a manager like this, I'm speaking of material world. I'm speaking of the common normal, which is a foundation. It's still a foundation. So when there is a manager like this, normally a sector emerges. Otherwise, the sector won't emerge. Otherwise, they won't find collaboration. They won't find other arms for them. They won't find collaborators. So that a true sector may emerge, it's necessary for the manager to be this, an organized sector, where things are really distributed. Now, there is a direct management, which is the one which you touch things directly, and there is indirect management, which is the one you take care through collaborators. So there is this direct part, which you are the ones who should do it in those moments, in those stages, and there is the indirect part, which is the one you are doing, you are organizing, you are stimulating, but which is done by collaborators. It's done by others. In many cases, this is to say, in almost all cases, there is a part of management which is public. It reflects in the group, it reflects in the community, in the external world, and this needs to be taken care of by the manager also. So it's not enough that they are part of it, that it's not enough that they indirectly work through the collaborators, but they must also realize, perceive the image, the reflection of everything that is happening. Otherwise, it will no longer be a positive management to be a negative management for a great number of people, or for a great number of processes. So it's necessary to see how this that you are managing is reflecting. You must take care of this image, because this is part of management. It is part of this technique of management. Now, in a spiritual center, which sometimes deal with very concrete management, there we are supposed to go a little beyond, because in a spiritual center, we would have to consider all of this as a work with the energy, work of energy. Then we are going to a different field. So the manager in a spiritual center is consciously dealing with energy, and not only with material things, not only with economy, not only with productiveness, not only with all that which the normal manager deals with. They are dealing with all of this, but they are aware that they are dealing with energy. They see all of this as energy and not only as someone else sees it. And they treat this reflection, this part that projects itself publicly, also as energy. And here, this part that reflects, this part that is a sign for others, in a spiritual center, this is very related to the use of donations. So the manager, a manager in a spiritual center, has to have a lot of clarity regarding the use of donations, and not only this, but they have to have it very clear that they have to mirror this good use of donations publicly for all those who donate. Otherwise, they put those who donate into conflict, because they won't know if they will continue to donate or not, because it is not well managed, it's not well controlled, distribute, so they will produce conflict in those who donate, in such a way that this part of donation in the spiritual center is very delicate in the scope of management. As they are dealing with energy, as the manager in the spiritual center is aware that they are dealing with energy, they will have to strengthen their own links, connections with their own inner being. Otherwise, if they don't strengthen their links with their own inner being, they won't know how to deal with this energy. You see, money is energy concretized. Money is energy materialized. Other people's work is energy partially materialized and partially psychological, psychic energy. Energy of love, energy of donation, energy of service. So this manager has to be in contact with their own inner nucleus, because it is from there that they will manage to manage all this energy. So if a being is giving love to a spiritual center, if the management of that center does not have an inner contact, they don't even realize this, and they don't know how to deal with that which they are manifesting. Because many people do not know how to manifest love. Many people do not know how to manifest devotion. Many people are not skilled in this. Many people do not have this capacity developed. And the manager has to recognize in their acts, in their reactions, a badly led love, a positive interest that is badly led. The manager has to recognize this and know this, and without the link, the connection with their own inner world, inner part, this will fail very much. So many things of management should be seen from an inner standpoint, the standpoint from the inner contact, and the laws in which they base themselves on should not be only material laws. If they are dealing with someone who is paid, they should not only consider the working laws of matter. They should also consider the laws of material evolution in that case. So, all that which is ruled by material laws has here a part that is connected with the laws of higher evolution, and the manager should know how to create this connection. They should know how to see from a standpoint of a higher law something that is inside of material law. A true manager is not someone who is there, manages and leaves, or who closes the door and disconnects from the work. This is not a manager. A true manager is part of that which they are managing. What they are managing is not strange to them. It is part of them. So they carry this to wherever they go. If you find a manager outside their environment, you could speak of any subject there with them, because they are the subject. They don't have to go to their environment to assist you. This is something of material, normal, human management. But the true manager is part of that which they do. So if an individual is managing a work, construction spiritually, they are part of that construction. That construction is also being made in them while it is taking place outside, materially speaking. They are not separate from anything they do. They are that which they do. And what they do is themselves in their intimate level, in their consciousness. And it is the inner impulse, the impulse that comes from within themselves, the impulse that comes from their higher being, that produces their influence. A spiritual manager is not influenced because they know how to work, or because they are very clear, or because they know how to ask for things, or because they have so many qualities. They really influence what they are doing, what is being done, through the inner impulse they radiate, the inner impulse they have. That is to say, it's not themselves personally as a manager, it's the impulse that comes from within themselves that truly influences, and not that which they are, they do, and all of that. It is what comes from inside that really produces this influence. Their ideas, the ideas they have, the proposals they make, the things they suggest, or the things they determine should be inspired also by their own inner higher levels, and not through practical and material needs only. Because before a material need, the best suggestion could not be the most rational. And if they are not inspired by their higher levels, they will place a need of evolving in the field of a material need. They supply that material need, and everyone remains at the same evolutionary level they were. Nothing changes there. You resolved the problem, you painted the wall, you fixed the door, but no one evolved through that. There was no evolution through that process. Because the one who was doing, the one who was managing, who was leading, was not connected. There was no inner energy when all of that was determined. So our contact, our harmony, our balance with our inner level is what determines the quality, the precision, the clarity of all of that we are managing through this way of management. There are some laws that we find in the book, The Trajectory of the Fire, which is related to this, directly related to this technique of management, this way of managing. And the first law that we find that stands out in all of this is the law of economy, which is not a material law. It looks like a material law, but it is not. The law of economy is a higher law. It is not a material law because it is about the economy of energy, and energy is something sacred, in such a way that the law of economy stands out when you want to deal with these subjects. And the law of economy means energy correctly channeled, energy channeled at the right time, in the right degree, in the right quality. And this is very important. All economy is based on this, or should be based on this. If economy was directly related to energy and not only materialized energy, but energy itself. So in higher evolution, we find for management the law of economy. Now, in human evolution, we also find some laws to be applied in management. They are human laws, laws of evolution on Earth, in personalities, but which are related to the harmony in economy. And the first law of human evolution is the law of detachment. You see, the opposite of the management school. So the law of detachment is fundamental in the human scope, in the personality of the manager when they deal with management, because the law of management is to act detached, in a detached way, to act without attachments. This is what increases their receptivity to the inner energy that they have available. The inner self will not flow through management activity if the manager is not detached. Detached does not mean absent or too relaxed. Detached is something else. It seems like you are attached. Everyone thinks you are attached, but you know you are not. So this is what increases your capacity to receive inspiration. Any attachment that is developed by that which is managed trims this, cuts this energy that does not allow this energy to flow. And it is detachment that prevents you to be crystallized, to be fanatical in a managing point. It is detachment that prevents you from stacking backwards in your way of acting, of managing, of distributing. It is detachment that is responsible for all of this. The other law of human evolution is the law of adaptability. Those who are not adaptable should choose a different task. If the person is not adaptable, if the person is too rigid, hard, do not stay in management. Management requires adaptability, because it is adaptability that will gradually adjust our way of being, our way of acting, of giving, building, the true need. If we are not adaptable, we want to supply a need, and suddenly this need changes and you don't realize. It changes the degree and you don't realize. And then you enter those aggressive characteristics of a manager, those incomprehensible not human attitudes of a manager, because they still do not have well-worked adaptability. Adaptability adapts energy, leads everything in such a way that everything will end up united in the most possible way, most united possible way. Something that is managed with productiveness but that divides everyone is something that is not well managed, even if it produces a lot. So if we have a great amount of things, great amount of people, but if people are not united, if people are divided, if people are not together as brothers and sisters, this is not well managed. And there are different sorts of management, not only money, right? We also manage personal. There are many names, this has many names in the world. And all of this needs a lot of adaptability because no being is fixed. No being is a brick that will be like this for centuries. Beings are in movement, in transformation at each moment. So the manager has to be very adaptable. Another law of human evolution that is indispensable in their work is the law of gratitude. First of all, gratitude for dealing with management and therefore having so much influence. So it is an opportunity the opportunity to serve that is very special. So you are in the management of something. You have to be very grateful to be there, not proud, not a despot, not impulsive, authoritarian. The thing that you have to radiate to keep all of this united is gratitude. You see, gratitude for being there. Imagine someone who is a manager who makes sure that he shows that he's tired for working a lot, or a manager who wants to show that he's very busy. A manager who wants to show they are tired, they are sick for working so much. Is this a manager? Not spiritually. A spiritual manager radiates gratitude for that which they do, what they are transmitting, for being as an instrument of realization for something. And this gratitude, this attitude of gratitude that they are in themselves and that they demonstrate in work is what provides fluidity. Things flow when the manager is grateful for the things they are doing. Otherwise, they don't flow, even with efficient people, with capable people, even with right people at the right place. It doesn't flow if the one who is coordinating is not grateful for that which is taking place, for the people who are there. Grateful to the heights, to the plan, thankful for or grateful for everything that is happening. And this gratitude of those who are responsible, those who are in coordination, those who are in the center there, the center of the activities, this is fundamental so that service may develop and service may not be stationary, that you cannot find a way of serving and everyone is used to this. This doesn't evolve, this does not progress because there is lack of gratitude for what is happening. And another law of human evolution is the law of behavior or conduct. There is a adequate behavior in each situation of work. And you should know the right behavior conduct for each moment. You shouldn't act in a way that is not for that moment. a behavior with someone that needs a different behavior. So this law of behavior or conduct requires a lot of clarity, a lot of inner contact for you to have the right behavior, the right attitude with the right person at the right moment. This is a law of human evolution. Those who do not have the right conduct or the right behavior must know this law to evolve and help so that everything may evolve. To evolve and to help everything to evolve. And another human law that is useful here for the managers is the work law, which is not working laws that we have in handbooks, but the working law is the law which, if you represent it, you are helping, you are favoring creativity, you are helping for an individual to develop, to create, to serve the planet where they are, to serve humanity. This clarity in the law of work, or working law, is not only the development of the individual, it is also the individual participating in the development of the planet, the individual participating in the development of humanity. Otherwise, it is a selfish work. It is a work of maintenance of things, which is normal in the laws of work and managing laws and managing action. But all of this must be in function of evolution, not only a realization, not only of productiveness, but evolution, not only the evolution of the individual who is working, but how this is influencing higher evolution, a greater evolution. And each manager should develop this among all those who are working. And this work should be very much in tune with the need. Because in the law of work, you do not need to work more than the necessary and not less, obviously. So in this law of work, there is this recognition of the need. And with work, it should supply that need and not waste energy with that which is not necessary, that which is not supposed to be done now, with that which is not supposed to deal with, you're not supposed to deal with now. This is an important economy. When we are in this way, inside of the law of work or the working law, when we are working inside of this law, our bodies ask or demand very little. Because in the law of work, we are using the bodies to develop these laws, to be these laws. And if all of this is well dimensioned, as we have seen, then the bodies do not have demands. You feel the need of the bodies, but your bodies are not demanding things that they really don't need, that they are really not in need of. And you who have bodies, who are in bodies, know what this means. Mainly the mental body, mainly the emotional body, right? On this evolutionary level in which we are. And this law of work, well carried out, adapts correctly, fits the movements of our consciousness, because our consciousness is infinite, it is limitless. But in work, this consciousness is supposed to be well located, well focused, and not dispersed, not going everywhere, because this is not what the work requires. The work requires a very precise, focused consciousness and well-measured consciousness so that it may develop. this this law of work is what heals our minds that are used to daydream, the mind is always ready to fly away, to imagine. And if we have a specific work, this helps the mind to concentrate. It helps the mind to dimension itself. And this is very important so that there is no dispersion of mental energy. The mental energy can be going everywhere, dispersing. If we don't have an exact, precise work, then the energy is just wandering and dispersing itself. And this law of work is the one that balances in us our material work with immateriality. This is done through work. This is not done in an abstract way. This is not done when we want. If we don't have a work, and if we are not in that law in a very correct and well-dimensioned way, we do not have access to that which is immaterial, that which is beyond physical material work that is being carried out. And it is through work that we feel part of creation. We feel part of this work, this infinite work that the creation of all of this is.